Hey, I don't wanna be inside today. Need to find my escape. It's time for shut nonsense now. Yeah, it's time for shut nonsense now. It's time for shut nonsense now.
Jeffrey, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
All right. Well, like I told you, I've got a little bit of a headache, so we'll see what my energy level and my cognitive abilities are like here for this one. But
We're gonna
I think I'll be able to power through.
There we go.
Power through. Lack of sleep coupled with my good old neck tension. So, yeah. So before we get into what we've been up to, we've got some shout-outs to do, my friend.
Yes, we do. It's been a good
We've got,
week.
this is exciting, we've got the most shout-outs we've ever shouted out. We're going to shout out harder than we've ever shouted out.
Nice.
So let's just go through the list from, well, first of all, we haven't recorded in a month. We've had to cancel a couple of recordings for various reasons and personal things going on. But so, yeah, we're recording, March 20th. Our last session was on February 20th. So since then, in the past month, we owe a huge thank you to Jim, Bob, Rob, Jen, Stephen, Gary Randall, and Matt Newman.
Nice.
And of course, if you're not familiar with Gary, put emphasis on Gary Randall because he is an amazing photographer up in the Pacific Northwest and a just all-around good guy. So
yeah, that's
he
awesome.
also apparently messed up and accidentally bought a gift for somebody, so he's gifting. So we should be getting another one because Gary messed up. So Gary, thank you for your mess up, and definitely appreciate you just doing that instead of waiting for me to respond to you and see if we could figure it out. So let me mark 7 shout-outs. That's really I need
good.
to order
That's
more
awesome.
thank you cards. I had to restock
Episode
on
30, not a
stickers.
bad way to start it, right?
No, it's not at all. I didn't realize this is episode 30, isn't it?
It is.
So, yeah, I've been mailing out thank you cards and stickers like a madman. So that is definitely...
New stickers, too, right?
Nice
We got
see.
the logo
Well, we've got
stickers
our existing ones, the round ones. And, yeah, I added in the actual square podcast logo to make it less about our crazy mugs and more about the podcast. If you want to slap it on a mug or your laptop or the side of your car, random people's foreheads, whatever you want to do. So I mentioned lack of sleep again, but what have you been up to before I whine about my reasons for lack of sleeping?
I'm in the middle of presentation season before the workshop season starts to pick up for the most part. A couple Camera Club presentations I've got going on. So luckily I did most of the prep for that before I left for Death Valley. So I was really able to sort of review the presentations I have before doing them. But I did one earlier this week, went well. Doing one tomorrow for my local photo club. And then I've got one Florida club I'm doing next week. And another one in April, I think. So that's been good. And then I've got
you got to teach me the secret sauce for how you're getting all these man.
I don't know what happened there. I got several folks reached out. I think I had 2 or 3 reach out at once. My local club, that's a little easier. That's just a lot of times there's some topic they want someone to cover, and I'm always happy to present something. So we do what's called a TTL talk. We're a Through the Lens photography club. So we call it Through the Lens, like a TED Talk thing. So it's like a 20-minute thing that I toss together for more of a general type photography thing, but it's fun.
20 minutes, that's like 3 sentences for me.
I know. I had a really tough time keeping my last talk I did earlier this week. I was like, oh man, I need to stop yapping. But yeah, 20 minutes is tough. I think I'll be able to hit it. It's a high level topic for the club. So I think we'll be good. But yeah, I got that. Got some one-on-one workshops coming up as well in Hocking Hills. I got one next week. It's an all-day one. Got like a 3/4 day one in about 3 weeks. And I feel like I've got one more out there before you and I head to the Smokies, but might just be 2 more.
Yeah, I'm leaving in less than a month. Well, I guess we're both leaving for the Smokies in less than a month.
Yeah, that's scary, right? Fast approaching on that front.
Oh,
I'm
my Lord.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of, we recorded the bonus episode after your Death Valley trip. So for those of you listening, if you want to catch that, $5 membership and above will get you access to all of our bonus episodes. I'm trying to remember what we talked about that versus what we talked about the last time we chatted. Our last episode, was that with John Norris?
Yes. Last episode was John Norris, I think.
Yeah, Joshua Tree. So yeah, I got to try to keep track of what we've talked about, what we haven't talked about. So, yeah, anything else you got going on?
No, but you were up late last night, so what were you hacking on?
Last night wasn't too late. It was later than I should have been because the night before I was up way too late. Yeah. See, here goes the headache and cognitive decline of lack of sleep.
He does not know what he's been doing, folks.
Yeah, what have I been doing? So again, it's kind of like, what haven't I been doing? I'm not making money like you with all these presentations, but no, I did. I had a one-on-one at the local park. That was 2 weeks ago. Had a guy reach out to me at the very last minute. He admitted up front, he's like, this is probably a long shot, but I leave for the Galapagos on Thursday. Any chance you can do a one-on-one real quickly? And he was wanting to do this kind of wildlife stuff, which I haven't done in a while. And I was up front with him about, having to knock off the dust on that. But it went really, really well. It's a half-day workshop at the local park, and he's over there now. So hopefully leveraging the skills that we covered. Yeah, and then just a lot of website work again and trying to do more advertising. I've got a new PhotoPack Pro update that by the time anybody listens to this will be live. I'm thinking I might push that actually here in the next few days, but that's adding in the ability to share list with other people. So if you're a workshop leader, shameless plug, if you're leading workshops, you'll be able to share your list for workshop attendees out for, hey, here's the stuff you need to pack, you need to bring, you need to do ahead of time, as well as having your own prep list. So yeah, excited about that. It works across both
super
platforms.
well too. I got to play with the early version.
Yeah, actually, it's funny.
Really well.
It came together far more simply from a coding standpoint, which I'll use air quotes for coding because I'm using an AI-based tool, but I'm directing the coding. And I think I've mentioned it before, but just the advancements in Claude that kind of underlies the platform I'm using is just nuts in the last 6 months. Definitely since I started building the app. Like, I think it was iOS implementation. Like, it was 1 or 2 prompts and it was done. And then, I had like 200 test scenarios I had to go through myself and everything. But yeah, really happy with how that came out. I think it works pretty intuitively. So that is now available. And as far as listening time. And then what else? I got my permit for Beavers Bend State Park in Oklahoma. Again, can't remember if I've talked about this, but I got permitted for that to lead small group workshops. So working on building out the web page for that to start getting some SEO juju on that one. And then realized as I was working on that I also need to build out a workshop prep page. So I got to do that. Might borrow heavily from JeffreyTadlock.com.
Yes. Yes.
Dear ChatGPT, please rewrite this.
Replace
what else?
Jeffrey with Michael.
Yeah, basically. So I got that page mostly built out. I just got to get that other auxiliary page.
Is it that the prep page? This is like the information page we use for like once someone's registered. Is that the page you're talking about?
Yeah. Like what to pack, what to bring, accounting for weather, yada, yada. So that's what I've got to build out still, having to start on that. Because I got myself distracted by I'm running an ad for PhotoPack Pro.
That was so funny. Just randomly, boom. I guess Michael's doing a spring sale.
Oh, well, yeah, that's not in the ad I was getting to, but...
your different ad. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm running an ad for PhotoPack Pro.
Yes.
On Instagram, and actually I'm running it on Google as well, although I'm probably going to kill that because it's just not doing anything other than costing me money. I think the meta ads, like it's only been $15 of ad spend so far. It's doing okay. I did it through Wix, which really limits the ability to set things up from a like audience targeting that. So I was going to get it set up with Google. That's why I was working on, not Google, with Meta directly, Meta Business Suite and my ad account prior to this recording, but I'm having trouble getting it linked up. So I got to figure out.
You still banned again?
No, I'm not banned because I'm running, to your point, I'm running a spring sale ad right now, which will be well over. It's just for this weekend. But I was putting together an email to plug kind of spring photos and prints that I'm offering. I decided at the very last minute, why don't I just run a 20% off promotion and see if I can spur some sales there. So, and then that tied into having to create ad assets and everything because I decided to try advertising it on Meta as well. So that's running. It just started 3 hours ago. So yeah, it's still getting distributed, but yeah, we'll see. Not expecting to get any sales off of it, but we'll see. It'd be nice if I could get a little kickstart on the print sales again. Yeah. It's just been dog health issues, which is kind of not an issue now, but we still need to get them into a specialist, and then some family stuff that came up last night. So yeah, it's just been all over the place again. And the realization that we're leaving for the Smokies in like 3.5 weeks. So panic mode.
Is it 3.5 weeks? Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm leaving on the 17th, so close enough.
Yeah, I guess
Today's March 20th, so we'll call it 3.5 weeks.
I got to start getting the Forerunner ready.
Yeah, and I got to create a itinerary of which campsite we're at each night.
Right, no kidding.
Yeah. Speaking of campsites, that's the other thing I've been looking into is doing a probably July trip to Grand Teton National Park. So I was checking what kind of availability there is on campsites, which actually it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I'm looking at the week after the 4th of July, 'cause Lord knows I don't want to be there on the holiday week. I'm already worried enough about going there in the summer with summer crowds, but definitely don't want to do it that holiday week. So we'll see if that comes about. I've got a couple photography guidebooks I've purchased, calling back to our photo trip planning episode. So yeah, anyways, let's talk about the topic du jour.
Yes.
What's the topic du jour, Jeffrey? I'm going to put you on the spot. I always introduce
evaluating your own photography.
Yeah, which continues to be front of mind for me because I still don't have my damn Smoky Mountain photos out as of March 20th, but I'm close. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of evaluating on that. So let's dive into this one. So we've kind of touched on this with, like, I just finished editing the episode about hit rate, which we kind of touch on some of this. We've got the imposter syndrome episode, which also kind of touches on this. I think we've touched on it in a couple of guest episodes. So this is going to be a kind of conglomeration of maybe things we've touched on here and there in various episodes, but hopefully a little bit more deeper dive on some of these topics, which I don't know about you, Jeffrey, but like I probably could have starred every single one of the questions on our prep sheet because I feel like they're all fairly relevant to us or our listeners, but I don't think we want to do a 2-hour episode. But hey, I don't know. I don't know what your availability is like. So I got a haircut at 2:30. That's my only restriction. So hence why I'm not wearing a hat for a change. But anyways, so let's just dive into it. Let's talk about our evaluative. What's that word? Process. So when you're sitting down, and I think this is twofold. It's when you first import kind of that initial culling, and then you've done your edits, and now you've got to decide, are the edits done? What are you going to actually publish to your website, share on social media? Kind of just high level before we kind of dip our toes deeper into the water. Like, what does that process look like for you?
So I'm slow to get to my images. I so much love the process of being out there that sitting down and going through them is not the first thing that I do, really. In fact, the biggest driver for me to really look up my photos and start looking at them is usually driven because I have a video that I'm putting out that I need some images from the trip in order to put in the video, which is a terrible way to do things because that's typically in a time crunch, and even choosing one is no guarantee I'm choosing my best image. Yeah. And then just the edit process, I don't really have enough time to do it. But if you take the video side out of it, I like to let my images sit for a bit on the computer. I back up my memory cards and pull them into Lightroom and let them sit, but I don't rush to review them right away. Mm-hmm. I do like to review them all at once, and that can be anywhere from 3, 4, 6 weeks after the trip in some cases, sometimes more. But yeah, and then from there, it's just, without going into the whole process, you just sort of scroll through the Lightroom catalog. I use stars to figure out if I'm going to give this one a second look, not a second look. And then you always end up with similar compositions of the same place. So then it's a matter of, okay, I like this ballpark composition. Which one's the strongest? And that's where you get into that much deeper look, which I'm sure we'll dive into a little bit, like what we're actually looking for. But that's essentially my process. I'm not one of those. I know there's people out there that they're posting images day after their trip, like crazy fast. And that is not me. I am much, much slower at even evaluating my images, which has pros and cons, I think. But how about you?
I'd say fairly similar. I'm not quite as slow on the initial import and review. I import in the field, and I think you do too. But
yeah,
I try to review the images relatively soon. Like I think my Utah photos from my trip in October, I think I had those rated and everything within a week or two coming home. I probably talked about it in a past episode, and I'm probably contradicting what I said 4 months ago, but I think I had those rated pretty quickly. I haven't touched my Yosemite files yet, which I want to, but it's just been like this balance of time and life and everything. But usually I try to at least do that initial rating within a week or so. And that may not be even like, when I say initial rating, I don't necessarily mean like my entire culling where I'm going, okay, here's my 1 stars and I'm going to filter by those and whittle them down to 2 and then whittle that down to 3. It's even just doing that first pass. Like I'm at least going to identify my 1 stars. And yeah, I know these aren't all going to make it through to the final stage where I'm actually going to sit down and edit them. But at least while things are a little fresh in my mind, I do kind of like to do that very first pass. And then if more time goes on from there, I think that's where we kind of like what we talked about with Ben, where Ben Horn, for the unaware listener, that episode where you give yourself that little bit of separation, then you start to take some of the maybe negative experiences. I was really cold, or I was really tired, or whatever. You take that stuff away, and it's more just a true critique of the image on its own standing. So it's a blend. And then the editing piece, it's that's where I'm stuck on the Smokies. I mean, hell, I've been stuck on the Smokies for over a month now, where I felt like I basically had the edits all done, and I still haven't released anything. This is the longest it's taken me in years to actually like get through a trip. I mean, hell, we're almost at a year now, right?
Yeah,
we're talking about going back to the Smokies, which is insane to me because I feel like I haven't had that much that should have pulled me away, but it's just balancing it with starting a podcast and trying to get the YouTube channel back up and running, and all these things. Like I look back on it, it's like, what was I doing? But I know I've been really busy, and I feel like I'm starting to get that push and pull conflict as a full-time photographer, where I struggle to make the time for the editing and the final decision-making process, as opposed to before when I didn't have like I didn't have as much business pressure when I was working full-time, obviously. So it's kind of like, oh, I don't need to do that admin type stuff. I'll just worry about the photos. Now I got to balance both. So, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting game, and it fluctuates. I think we've talked again before that at one point I went to the way extreme where I would sit on finished edits for weeks and months and not put them out, not because I was busy, but because intentionally I wanted to keep coming back and revisiting and all that stuff. But then I was just delaying for no real point, because at some point you get the edit to a good enough point or where you want it. So I've swung the pendulum both directions too. So let's dig in a little deeper to that evaluation process. So when you're reviewing your image, what specifically are you looking for as you go through? Let's just talk about the culling, like the rating process at this point. What are you looking for specifically to make the determination of what's going to get the cut and what's going to pass through?
A lot of it is a semi-quick scroll through. I mean, obviously you're dropping the fuzzy images and things like that through there. But once you sort of get through that, I'm really looking for what composition works. So our first night in Death Valley, I photographed at Devil's Golf Course, and I had, 4 or 5 compositions from there, and not all 4 or 5 of those are going to get released because I was experimenting, I was playing what works, what doesn't. But in my culling process, I look at it and I found like 2 that I like these. These are interesting, and they're different enough that I could potentially publish both images and not be like, oh, he just moved 3 feet. It's like it's a different perspective. And in, of those, a bunch of those were focus stacked. So, taking in that one evening as I went through, like I said, I had 4 or 5 probably different compositions in initial, because I had to do this for the video. That's why I've already done this. So I went through those, narrowed it down like 2 compositions for the video purpose. I chose my favorite, but then I had like 5, 6 series of focus stacked scenes. And then like you and I've said, sometimes we overshoot and the light's not really changing, even though I'm taking pictures. And I chose which one where I thought the light was the best of that time span for that composition. And that's sort of how I got it. So that's sort of my rough piece. I mean, going a layer deeper, you're looking at edge patrol, things cut off. But at a high level, before I even get to that step, it's which compositions ended up being interesting where the light was working well. Some I shot a little too early in the evening. So yes, it worked I like the composition, don't like where the clouds are at or how the light is quite yet. So you wait, and then it's later in the series, you get what you want. But that's essentially my thing. A quick look through to what composition seems interesting to me. And I think, of course, in the back of your head, it's, if you've got a blown out sky that's getting tossed unless you bracketed it somewhere.
Right.
Things like that. But that's essentially how I make my approach.
Yeah. Again, pretty similar. For me, it's, especially with as much woodland as I do, a lot of times it comes down to, even in that first pass of rating my 1-star stuff, like, okay, we've cut out the junk and I've got my 1 stars. I'll even start evaluating things like sharpness at that level. Because to your point, like you might have multiple shots of the same composition, but oftentimes it's because I was working in breezy conditions and trying to time it. So going through, and if I held off evaluating that sharpness piece until like round 2 or the final round of culling that I do, well, then I might have advanced an image all the way through that last round and then come to realize that, it's either out of focus slightly or there's some wind motion that I hadn't noticed or whatever. So I do probably delve into that sharpness piece a little earlier in the process than what some people do. Yep. Again, this is all personal preference and what
I think it makes sense for woodlands or anything where you have that foliage. Like the Death Valley shots, it could have been pretty darn windy, and I'm going to be in good shape. But for the woodlands like you do, I 100% get that because now if you let it get all the way through, and then it's when you really dig in and see, it's a bit soft. Well, now you got to go all the way back. What did I miss? There's probably something similar that the wind was in a lull. So I think it makes sense to put sharpness fairly early for certain scenes.
Yeah. I mean, even if you don't do that, it's not that hard to go back because typically your photos are going to be next to each other. So you just unfilter and, here, but still it's an additional delay.
Underestimate.
You
underestimate how lazy I am.
Well, I should know that by now. But anyways. And like for my Yosemite stuff, I probably won't do as much of that because I've got a lot more bigger, broader landscapes, and also fortunately it wasn't super windy on that trip. So again, it kind of depends on trip to trip, but like you, looking for general balance of a composition, and that it's funny that from my perspective, like we just talked about the hit rate episode because I'm editing that one right now, but in reality that came out.
Man, when did we talk? That seems
months
like
ago.
Last year.
I know, right? But anyway, so I feel like I just talked about this stuff yesterday, but it was just editing that episode. But yeah, just looking at edge patrol, that gut feeling. Maybe I was trying something a little different with a composition, or like I can think of some shots in Yosemite that when it comes time for me to do my initial rating, like I did some different stuff. I was shooting handheld and really wide to get some overarching branches and El Capitan and the frame of that. We'll see how they turn out when I look at them on the big screen. So that's the kind of stuff where I'm looking like, hey, I tried something a little different here. Does it feel balanced? Does it feel uneven in terms of the weight on one side or the other? Does it work at all? It goes back to that gut feeling.
Yeah, it might make that cut sometimes when you wasn't necessary because you're like, you experimented. So even if it doesn't work, you want it selected so you can learn from it, right? Like, it was off balance. I need to remember that next time I try this. I'm not going to use this one. But so yeah, that totally makes sense when you're experimenting with wanting to make sure that gets looked at additionally.
Yeah. And even, like as I go through my rounds of culling and rating, like I have plenty of images in that final 3-star selection that is technically they're my candidates for editing. And I may not know if they're going to work or not, but maybe, I want to try a different crop, or I want to try this one in black and white instead of color, or, what have you. So it's not like it's a written in stone or anything like that in terms of what I'm going with. But yeah, I think I already mentioned the edge patrol or border patrol, or we're going to call it, looking for distracting things on the edges that can't be easily addressed with a slight crop or a very simple remove or anything like that. If it's something more structural to the scene that I just either can't or don't feel comfortable addressing through removing it or what have you, then that's going to get the axe.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. I'm looking at light. I'm not really looking at color because, again, we're looking at the raw files, so you're only getting so much of an idea there. As I get further into that rating process, I might start playing with some, like the adaptive profiles that Adobe's rolled out. I might throw one of those on an image or 2 images that are similar to get that feeling of, does one of these work better than the other? But yeah, that's the gist of it.
You mentioned raw files and how they look flat, right? Like, and sometimes it can be demotivating to see them because they're so flat unless you can put it in your head that, yeah, there's potential there. Have you ever played with an import preset or anything like that to try to apply some basic settings to see if it's working? Not that you would start your edit from there, but just to sort of soup the image up so you don't face that, like, oh, you're all flat.
I think at one point in the past I did, but it was like in that 2017, 2018 time frame when I was jacking the saturation up more than what I would do today, and like leaning very towards warm color temp adjustments versus more natural or what's better for the color separation. So I don't do that anymore. The one thing I do have is I have Lightroom set that it imports, when it imports into Lightroom, it applies the camera matching profile.
Gotcha.
So I typically shoot in camera standard on my Canon. So when it comes into Lightroom, it applies that camera standard profile instead of the Adobe standard or whatever it's called. If I shot in the monochrome, it's going to import into monochrome. That actually bit me in Yosemite. Kind of funny sidebar. I was in my field check-ins that I was doing for my Patreon members from Yosemite. I was talking about how, I've got this custom black and white profile on my camera that's set up for the red filter, so it gives you that Ansel Adams, dark blue skies, turn dark gray and that. And I was importing in the hotel that I stayed in one night, and I'm like, man, why are I thought I shot more black and white than this. I totally forgot, and I'd run into this before. I just forgot about it. That custom black and white profile, Lightroom doesn't know what to do with it. So it just defaults to the Adobe standard.
Gotcha.
So that bit me a little bit, which is disappointing because I like being able to see it with that red filter that I like to use.
Yeah.
But the monochrome camera profile is still pretty good. It still gives you a pretty good idea. So I just switched over to that, and it imported the rest of them in black and white. So I knew which ones I had kind of seen that way in the field. But yeah, so I don't do, but I think you do, don't you? Don't you have a few things?
Yeah. So I and that's why I started mentioning I've been using the Rethink Landscape Toolkit from David Kingham when he put that out, and it's a super cool toolkit. I've done a couple of videos on it. And it's not a preset toolkit like you're thinking where it's a one click it goes. It's more, think of it more like a TK panel for Photoshop, which if you're not familiar, it essentially makes built-in Lightroom tools easier to use. Like, so if you want to dodge brush, you don't have to go do a bunch of configuration. You click a thing and suddenly you've got a dodge brush that can be set for highlights or anything, or midtones or shadows. But anyways, in his early core processing, there is a import preset that is available that you could apply to your imported images just to spice them up a little bit. His intent is not for you to use that as the in fact, the first step when you start editing it is to clear all those settings so you're starting from the flat file. But I did find a Death Valley image that I was probably going to bypass at one point, but I ran it through that import preset and it's like, oh, that has some potential. So it helped me sort of see past that, oh, it's really flat thing. So that's why I was curious, because I have found it somewhat of an interesting tool to just sort of, make me see the potential a little quicker, even though the first step in an editing is you actually clear that out and start it from scratch. But you sort of see its potential a little more readily. Yeah,
I've been meaning to look into that some more. I got it. Obviously, I got the email when he released it, and really found it interesting because I hadn't really seen anything like that before. But we'll link to it in the description. I think it is, especially for somebody that's not as familiar with Lightroom or whatever, I think it's a great way to get started and like you said, kind of streamline some of those workflows too. And I just had another. So I don't do it on an import. One thing I do more so in the later stages of culling, like I've got two images or two files that are very similar compositionally, or maybe they're even the same. And I just can't decide which one I like a little better. Sometimes I just go with a gut feeling, like, hey, they look pretty much the same, so I'll just go with the one on the right or whatever. But I do oftentimes, I'll go in, not just with that Adobe or that adaptive profile that Adobe's added into the profiles list, but sometimes I will, just with the global contrast slider, I'll play with contrast just to see, like, okay, how is this going to play out at some level? Sometimes I don't do it very often because I don't really like the auto settings in Lightroom, but sometimes I'll just hit that auto button just to try to get a better feel for, like, where could this image go? And sometimes that is the defining or the determining factor between choosing file A versus file B on similar compositions or what have you. So do you know, I've talked about, for me, it's very much oftentimes a gut feeling when it comes down to choosing between two slightly different compositions or two of the same composition, but maybe slightly different light. Do you find your decision making around evaluating your files, is that more instinctual? Is it more like analytical? Like, is there we've already talked about like edge patrol and that, like, is there a more of a like mental checklist process, or where does that fall for you?
It's very subjective for me, for sure. I mean, there's a couple technical things. Is it sharp? So like that Devil's Golf Course image, it was a focus stacked image. So there was let me stack this and make sure it looks sharp all the way through from a technical standpoint. But it only reached that point because subjectively I liked that image and felt like it was a good image. Like you said, edge patrol. Yeah, I'm looking. Did I do an awkward crop somewhere that I could either remove or crop this photo a little different? Or if I off-centered something, like, oh crap, I shouldn't have put that rock there. And there's just no way to like change it. It's just nope. I didn't get it. Beyond that, it's very subjective to me. It's what speaks to me, what feels the strongest to me, for better or for worse. That's just sort of how I do it. There's a couple of those technical things to check. You know, if I blew a sky out completely and I have no bracketed image to recover, well, I guess I messed that shot up. But if it's once you're sort of beyond those egregious technical errors, much more subjective as to which one I like better. It's not like it's got to be on the left third to be good or anything. It's just what feels best.
Yeah. What's that gut feeling? And I think that's something that probably comes, not to speak for like every photographer out there, but I think that's something that just comes with experience. Is you're able to move, really what that gut feeling is it's experience guiding the decision subconsciously almost.
Yeah.
So you've got that groundwork, foundational work, whatever, of the years before that help you trust your gut, because that gut feeling is based on all those past experiences and culling efforts and everything like that. Do you ever, this isn't on our list, but it popped in my head when you were chatting or talking about that point, but do you ever send your raw files out for input on making selections? Or
almost never. And it is one of those things I feel like I should potentially do more often, but no, a raw file I don't think I've ever shared a raw file with anybody.
I haven't either. When I seek out input, and we're kind of jumping ahead to a later topic, but it's always, here's my mostly finished edits.
Right.
What do you think? I can't think of, other than like in the field, like taking a photo of the back of my screen or something, like, dude, check this out. Like I can't think, and even that's not the raw file because it's a JPEG on the screen, but I can't say I've ever reached out for help on the raw. Again, probably earlier on in my journey, that would have been helpful to help me make those more thoughtful decisions, mental checklists, whatever, to get that input as I was making my selections of what works, what doesn't work. So I think, again, that's part of the journey, is if you're newer in it, maybe reach out to somebody that offers portfolio critiques, but see if they'll do not necessarily portfolio, but hey, can you help me, quote unquote, pick the winners and identify the losers, or however you want to frame it in this set of raw files.
That's huge, right? That's a don't do as we did, but do as we say. Because, man, think of how much we could have learned if we'd have sat down and just done a calling session with somebody that had a good eye in our early days, and just, man, we probably could have skipped so much of the like, okay, now I know what I'm looking for. Instead of over the years of looking at photos, editing our own photos, finding out what works. I think that's, don't shy away from it.
You'd have to be careful of is making sure that their eye doesn't dictate your eye.
Yep. Yeah, there's always
it's all subjective. Balance. It's whether it's a finished photo or raw file, like it's all subjective at the end of the day. Just because person A doesn't like it doesn't mean that's the gospel, and you got to go with it.
So with that in mind, like you said, even if you're getting review of your work, whether it's a raw file or close to final file, you brought up a very important point. who do you listen to? I do feel like you should always listen to yourself, but how do you work through that process if you were to do that? How do you decide whose feedback is worth listening to? If you've shared it maybe with one person, do you think about how you would choose that person? Or maybe you've shared it with a couple different people. Yeah. Do you have anything you would consider as you evaluate their feedback? Because I think you bring up an important point. You shouldn't necessarily immediately do what someone else says. But
well, first of all, that's why I never really have put stuff out for public facing critique, because there's going to be potentially a lot of noise, a lot of unhelpful critique or misguided critique or what have you. So yeah, part of it is identifying whose work do you respect and admire. Maybe you've, like Alex Noriega and his post-processing tutorials that he's got, or Eric Bennett or whomever, like maybe you've gone through those and you appreciate their understanding of the techniques that they're applying and the end results they're getting. So that's kind of step A in terms of determining who to even reach out to. Beyond that, again, it's just, I'll pick on Matt Payne, as I like to do. So I sent out my Smoky Mountains files to him, my edited ones, kind of like, hey, I think this is my final selection. I know I'm going to cull some of these because it's 70 something images, and there is a group of them that I know are very similar to one another in that. So I've got to do some more culling, but, again, his viewpoint is his viewpoint, and a lot of it I agreed with, but there were some images like, I don't really like this or that, or, you could crop this differently, that I just didn't agree with. And it's having trust in yourself and your own vision, maybe setting aside or overcoming that imposter syndrome again, to know, like, I can't give anybody advice on here's when you know to accept the critique and here's when you know to ignore the critique. If I really wanted to joke, I'd be like, oh, when I send stuff to Matt, if he likes it, I toss it and I do the opposite. Just kidding, Matt. Love you. But like a really good bit of feedback I got from Alex Noriega, I'd sent out, it was when I was doing, was it my winter Utah ebook that I was getting ready to publish on my website. And I really thought that the editing was dialed in, but he gave me some feedback on some of the images about they were a little warm scene. And it was specifically shots within canyon, Red Canyon walls and that, where it was very warm reflected light. And I was like, well, they were that warm. But he gave me the tip of, well, if you drop down your color temp and push it towards the cooler side, you'll start seeing some better color separation. And I took that advice and I tried it, and I was like, oh, that actually does work really well. You don't lose the warmth that was there, but you do get a little better color separation. So that's a tip in terms of sending something out for feedback and input that I still use to this day, where I tend to push images cooler than what I would in the past to try to drive that color separation. So it's an art. It's not a science. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you make the determination of this is a great feedback, or, screw them, I'm not going to listen to it?
Right. I mean, I think obviously the first thing is you go to people who you like their work. Like you said, if you've been following an editing tutorial and you hopefully bought that tutorial because you liked how that person edited images. So if they were doing reviews, that's probably a good one to go with, because it'll help to tell you, am I following your technique relatively well? Is it close? Right. Is it things? And I think when you get that feedback with your temperature example, I think it's important to consider it, right? Like, you could have backed the color temp slider off a bit and been like, I hate it, which could have been valid, right? But I think it was important that even though your gut was like, well, I like it warmer, you tried it, right? And then you made a decision. So I think from the feedback process, it's important to make those subtle changes, because you probably went to the person for a reason. But with that said, if you made the subtle change and it totally changed how you thought the image should work and not for the better, I think it's entirely valid to be like, I appreciate the advice. And you might even say, I see a little bit color separation, but I lean towards warm. That it's valid to, I prefer it this way. But I think that's a real interesting piece there, is even though you were tending towards, I like it this way, try it, because
that actually is a little better. Yeah.
Those are where the light bulb moments happen, right? Because of that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it is important to be true to yourself and what you see. And that is not always going to be what someone else sees. But I think as long as you've sort of chosen who's giving feedback, who you're working with, you're probably the feedback. You should at least try it and then make your decision and not discount it completely if you've taken the time to choose it out. But I do think there's times to...
I'd say it could be sometimes like trust with a healthy dose of skepticism's not the right word.
Yeah.
But trust, but also know when to question, I guess, would be the summation of it.
Yep.
And to give Matt credit too, but it's also an example of taking some advice and not others. Like in my Smokies file, you might remember, we had some of those overlook times we went out where it was just totally socked in with low cloud and heavy fog. And so I've got some shots that are very ethereal, and some of them I really leaned into a lot of negative space and the brightness of the sun trying to burn through versus maybe shadowed trees or whatever. And Matt gave me feedback on cropping on a few photos. Some of them I tried the crop and I was like, oh yeah, actually I think that looks better. It's a little more balanced. But then some others I tried the crop and I was like, I see where his viewpoint's coming from, but I like it better this way. So I'm just going to leave it. So it's not to say just because I disagree with Matt on one thing, I'm throwing all of his input out.
Right, and I think that's important too, right? Like if you're taking 10, 15, 20 images to somebody and they're looking at them, if you find yourself rejecting all of that person's advice, you may be going to the wrong person for your feedback.
Or you're not open-minded like you need to be.
Correct, yeah. If you're completely closed-minded, that is true. I am assuming you are going to...
If you're seeking out feedback, hopefully you're going in open-minded.
Yes, but if you've got a couple that you disagree on, that's I think entirely normal and stuff, and that could be sort of your gauge to, I get it. You don't like those, and that's fair. And we I think that's an important consideration.
Yeah, and also remembering that just because they don't like a photo doesn't mean they don't like you.
No, they dislike you. If they don't like your photo, they don't like you.
I think Matt even
terrible.
Messaged me after he had gone through and was like, I hope you don't mind a lot of input. And it wasn't all like, oh, this sucks. He also had some really positive input on several of the images. But I was like, yeah, man, that's what I want. That's why I'm reaching out for the second set of
when you're ready for that feedback, it's so valuable, right? When you can get that disconnect of being prepared for what they say about your photo, they're not telling you you're a bad photographer or anything like that. It just opens up for the person giving the feedback to be more, this is what I think, without having to try to dance around or sugarcoat.
Right. I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Right. That's to me where the feedback is. And it's always hard as a person that gives feedback sometimes. It's like, do you want oh, you're doing a good job, make this small change? Or do you want, man, I'm not, I do some pretty drastic changes. But yeah.
I mean, and as that person giving feedback, it can be very difficult to tell somebody, I just don't like this photo. It's one thing to have like feedback. Oh, you might try shifting the colors or dodging and burning here or a different crop, as opposed to, I just don't feel this photo works at all.
Right.
Again, you're kind of telling them their baby is ugly.
Yes, that's a much different.
So not just you dressed it ugly, but that kid is ugly.
Yeah. Like I have nothing positive to say about that one, buddy.
That's the ugliest baby I've ever seen. So anyway, so we've talked, to this point, we've really only talked about seeking out individual feedback. Have you ever done feedback at like your local camera club or an online community? We've got a smaller Discord group that you and I are a part of that's only a handful of folks that has an image critique section that I haven't personally used, I don't think. But have you sought out more of that group feedback, or do you tend to go?
I have two scenarios. I have my local camera club where we actually do an image review at the meeting. That's part of built-in piece. You share 2 to 3 images, but it's very timid review in my opinion, which is fine because again, you got a mixed group. You don't 100% know, is this person, what do they want? And I do think our group does a good job at gauging experience level to the person. So I do think us folks been going that club forever are pretty good. Oh, you're newer photographer, so we temper, but nothing is ever really harsh.
Right.
Because I've got stuff I've sent. Now I've had the workshop leader. We get along well. The camera club leader. I've had them. Do you like that right there? A little more pointed, but I know them very well. Right. But anyway, so I've done that, but it's timid in most cases. I've done the LPW image critique a couple times, and it was very successful. I had a couple folks that I respect that contributed to the discussion, and they didn't tear an image apart. They just made good suggestions. Like we were talking earlier, that shift of warmer to a little cooler. It was that type of feedback. They didn't trash. They said, I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
That might have been harder to accept. But it was like, hey, we like this image. Make these layers a little more distinctive. I don't do it as often as I should. And a lot of that's because I am unfortunately imposter syndrome, and I really have to mentally steel myself to be ready for that feedback, even though I know I should do it way more often than I do. But I've done it a couple times. I not to go too long, but I would, if you're going to do a group feedback, do it in a community that is photographers or something. Like I would not put one of my images up on Facebook and openly ask for critique, because to your point, that opens up the door to...
Or it's going to be friends and family. Oh, it's so awesome.
Right.
And really, there are some opinities there. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
You've never heard my wife trash my waterfall photos.
Heather's pretty good. She'll tell me if she doesn't like a photo, but she doesn't like trash it. But no, I would say definitely like something like Landscape Photographer Worldwide Discord server where there's an image critique section. Nature Photographers Network, which is
a good one.
Really mostly critique now in terms of sharing work. There's no just, hey, look at my work. It's all around the critique base, and you've got a wide range of skill sets and viewpoints and everything in there. The one thing I will say, and I don't like doing the group feedback and actually the tag along on that question was, can it overwhelm you? And for me, if a lot of people jump in, it can feel a little overwhelming, but also you mentioned imposter syndrome. For me, doing group-based feedback like that kind of takes me back to like my school days when I would like hate being the center of attention, or like everybody's picking on me, or whatever.
Right.
So that's just a personality.
Yes,
we'll call it an opportunity for me, but I much prefer the one-on-one phone. Like even that ebook that I sent out for feedback from, I sent it to 3 different people.
Right.
But I sent it to them each individually. It wasn't like, hey, everybody pile on in one group chat or whatever. So,
and I'm more comfortable to that point. Like I spend less time on NPN than I do LPW. So like I would trust LPW more, even though I know NPN's known for their critique and how because I'm more connected to the LPW community. Yeah. I feel less. But you're right. You got people, and then a critique tend to point out things that aren't going well, and quickly you can be overwhelmed with 2 or 3 people pointing out different things not going well, and then you're back to that whole, well, where did I want to take this picture? And that may make one person's feedback more valuable than another person's based on that. So it's a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mentioned we've got that smaller private Discord group that we're in. Part of the reason that was set up by the person that set it up was we're all in the same boat of like, we're kind of up and coming. We're trying to build careers out of this. And it kind of ties in. Gary Randall messaged us when he joined the Patreon, but one of the things he mentioned was like, oh, you guys don't have any ego. It's not an egotistical photography podcast. And throwing that out there, like as a up and coming photographer that's trying to make a career out of this, I also don't want to necessarily go out in a public space or a broader, even if it's a broader private space like LPW. I don't necessarily want to be putting out there like, hey, I'm unsure about my work, because maybe he is trying to lead workshops and that's not the impression I want to give people. So it's also kind of that like smaller safe space. On the flip side, though, I'll also say I've seen it on LPW when somebody shares something in that critique, and it gets a lot of traction with comments and feedback. So many times the feedback is contradictory. Person A loves this. Person B loves that. Person C doesn't like that part. Person D loves that part. So also you got to be cautious of that when you're getting into the bigger group feedback environments, because that's where it's like, well, now I don't know what to think, because everybody's got their own subjective opinions and none of it is, aligned. If it is aligned, then maybe you've got a legitimate thing to look at. But I see that so much where the feedback is contradictory from person to person. So that can be one of the challenges with that group feedback too. Yep. So shifting a little bit from a growth standpoint and evaluating.
Are we shifting gears?
No, I didn't say that. You said it now. So the police will be knocking on your door. So anyways, from an evaluation standpoint, how do you evaluate or how do you define improvement or growth in your work over time? So we've talked about just evaluating a random set of photos, but how do you make that determination? Like, am I growing? Am I progressing in my skills and my compositions, my ability to, see creatively, so on and so forth? How does that rattle around the old noggin, for lack of a better way to put it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. A lot of it is self-motivated and self-feeling. I don't necessarily look for a ton of external validation. With that said, you like to have people look at your images and go, oh, that's a nice photo, Jeffrey, or you like that. But it's more, I think, more of an internal self-measure. Some of it's just I can tell my knowledge is growing as I go because, maybe to liken it way back to the early days, it was global adjustments everywhere, right? Like, oh, cool, this is look at me and change that saturation. And to me, a metric of improvement was understanding local masking and why would you want to do that? So as I understand more, I feel like I'm probably getting better and improving over time. Feeling like once I've finished editing an image, it's in a good space, as opposed to finish editing an image and being like, yeah, that still looks like crap. Type situation. So it just sort of builds confidence around the whole, my calling process is getting better, because if it makes the cut, my edit seems to come out okay. Fewer times of this made the cut, I edited it, and it's still never going to see the light of day, type situations. So that's where a lot of mine is around, very in focus. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it, because there's an element of, you like to have people say good things about your photos.
Yeah.
And, depending on who's saying good things about your photos, that even changes it, right? Like you said earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
Friends and family on Facebook saying awesome image. Feels good, but I'd rather have, Alex Noriega comment on my photo, like, nice image, right?
Yeah.
No
that's
offense
what I was
to
saying.
family,
I
but
still have that little bubble of, that warm bubble of joy inside of me, thinking back to Alex's look at that ebook and like, oh, I love these images. Like,
yeah,
Alex
right.
Those images.
Yeah. So how about you? How do you measure your improvement? I mean, I'm sure there's a spreadsheet hidden around somewhere. But...
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. No, it's funny that we're talking about this because I'm in the midst of, or I just finished the edit on that hit rate episode, which one of the things I talked about in there is for up until when we recorded that episode shortly before then, like I really looked at it very much like, okay, I took X number of photos. How many of those are making it through to my final publication, essentially? What's that ratio? And if that ratio is getting higher and higher in terms of more photos that I'm making in the field, making the cut, then I'm getting better. And I still feel that way to an extent. Like, how many photos do I have to tweak the crop in Lightroom versus I got it right in camera? Am I having to really push something from an editing standpoint as opposed to having either gotten a better moment in the field because I stuck around, I was a little more patient and got better light or better conditions or whatever, or maybe just identifying that I've gotten better at that evaluation process, and something that would have made it through my culling 2 years ago wouldn't make it through today. And that's also part of going back and reevaluating the work that you've got out there, which I think we've talked on or touched on as well with my website. I've got over 500 images in my portfolio on the website. Probably time for me to start going back through those again with a fresh look and a really critical look as to, it was a photo I was really, really happy with 5 years ago, but how would I stack it up against my work today? So on and so forth. But yeah, I don't have a spreadsheet. It is just, I probably was, like I said, too hung up on that hit rate ratio improving. Because as Sarah Marino pointed out, again, if you haven't listened to the hit rate episode, it was, a high hit rate ratio in terms of success. I took 20 photos and 18 of them made it through to getting shared or published or whatever. That could be a sign that your skills are improved, but it could be a sign that you're not trying to push yourself and stretch yourself and grow. So it's finding that balance too. I mean, at the end of the day, I look at it as, if I print it, when I put it on the wall, kind of step back, and I think that's where I'm at now, is I'm at a pretty quote unquote happy place with the level of my work, that am able to step back, and it feels egotistical to say it, but like, I'm really happy with that work or that photo or whatever, as opposed to maybe a little bit more historically, I would have trouble feeling that way. I think that's also where I've gotten away from that perfectionism a little bit. Again, talking to what we discussed with Ben, seeing all the little flaws and having that block out your view of the overall image and the overall creative vision for it. Like, oh, that one little branch is slightly out of focus or whatever. And that's all I'm going to see, as opposed to, overall, man, I really love this photo. So there's multiple factors that come into it. And I think, like you said, it's also just kind of that intuition. Like, do I feel like I'm growing? Do I feel like my work this year is better than my work last year or 2 years ago? If the answer is yes, then I think that's really all that matters. If you have to ponder it or aren't sure, then maybe the growth isn't quite there, and it's an opportunity to kind of step back and question, why am I not seeing growth? Is it because I'm not pushing myself? Am I being sloppy in the field or whatever?
Right.
Just taking that moment to step away from being in the midst of editing and publishing and sharing on social media and everything, and saying, okay, well, I can't confidently say that my work has improved. Why do I think that is?
Right.
And maybe that's where it'd be an opportunity to reach out for an image critique or portfolio critique or whatever, too.
Push you over
if you're struggling to make that determination, reach out to somebody and say, hey, I feel like I've stagnated. Here's a set of photos from the last 5 years, the last year, whatever. Let me know what you're seeing, and kind of work through it that way too.
Yep.
So let's talk about the edit piece. We've talked about kind of like, is it a good photo piece? But in our episode with Murray, we talked about this in terms of our post-processing changing over time. How do you evaluate when the edit's done? I think the question that many photographers probably struggle with.
Yep. For me, I don't struggle a whole lot with that. I'm more willing to let some of the weaker areas go by, I guess. I don't always feel the urge to constantly tweak and retweak. And I think it's just always been that way. Maybe not. Maybe it's because I learned I over-edited my photos early on, and maybe you can spend too long, and that's what leads to me over-editing because I'm making way too many tweaks to it. So for me, I think my editing process is, I like it to look good, of course, but I don't agonize over some of the super small things, for better or for worse. So I think I reach that point of feeling like an image this is good more quickly than some, because I know a lot of struggle with that. Like you said, you'd let an image sit for quite a while, a lengthy time to sort of see. It must just be how I'm built. I don't feel like I've struggled with that quite as much. It could be because I had a lot of portrait event background where I had time limits, right? Like I had to turn something around in X amount of time. So I got very ingrained to, you do an edit, you want to do a good job, you want the client to like it, but you also have to get it. There's a deadline to turn it over. So maybe that's why it shaped some of my landscape photography, because that just has not, I don't put that one as a big challenge for me. But how about you? It sounds like something you've at least struggled with in the past, and potentially
definitely in the past. At some point, and again, this goes back to that perfectionism piece, I think, is it probably doesn't sound great at first blush when you're talking about art or your creative vision, but at some point, good enough has got to be done. Because if you're trying to achieve perfect on every single image, you're never going to get there. And it goes to the saying of, don't let perfection be the enemy of done. Or good enough, or what have you. So I think I'm at a point now where, kind of like you, like, I'm happy with it. Yeah, if I come back in 3 weeks, maybe there's some little thing I want to tweak. But I also have the experience at this point of 10 plus years of doing this, that I used to do so many little tweaks and little itty bitty masks and little itty bitty removes or whatever. And then you end up going back and like, oh, let me turn off all my masks to see what I did. And you realize that all of that stuff you did just kind of washed each other out. And so you did all this work thinking you're tweaking it, but really you didn't get anywhere. And we've talked again, like, I think we both are in the same position where we do a lot less processing today than we've done in the past. Again, I think that comes back to getting it more right in the camera to begin with and getting the right moments in the field.
Yeah, that's
equals doing less processing, but also it's realizing that you don't have to chase every little pixel and every little detail and again, chase perfection for the sake of just getting it done. And part of me has wondered is like, okay, these stupid Smoky Mountains files, like it's been a year, we'll call it at this point. Why have I not gotten these done? And it's not because of being overly critical. I have gone back and forth a fair bit, but I'll also partly blame that on getting the MacBook because now I can edit on 2 different screens.
Right.
So there is a difference, even though they're calibrated. Like my BenQ monitors do look different than what the laptop screen.
Yes.
The contrast is different in that. So I've gotten a little hung up on that, like going back and forth. So I'm trying to get back to just doing all of my like final edit on the monitors from a consistency standpoint. But also because I've let so much time go with these stupid photos that when I go back into it, I feel like I've got to start at the beginning again and like reevaluate everything because so much time has passed.
Right.
So that has been very much a kind of a process flaw as opposed to an over critical or trying to achieve perfection. It's just a different aspect of it. But you just, again, it comes to that gut feeling. Like, are you happy with it? If you put it out today, would you be happy selling a print of it to somebody and having it displayed on their wall? Would you be happy if you shared it on social media? Is it really going to matter if you add that one little brush stroke in the lower left corner to dodge it 5% or like, no. So at some point you got to make that determination. Good enough is good enough and just get the damn thing out the door. And yeah, I think I became fearful of that years ago when I was sitting on stuff for so long because I had that experience of coming home, doing the edit and same day, pushing it out to Instagram or whatever. And then the next day looking at it and going, oh, what was I thinking? Like, that's awful. Right. Yep. So that's where I swung the pendulum too far. And I haven't been in that too far position for years now, but it's all things you got to be conscious of. Like, have I swung it too far one way or the other? But yeah, at the end of the day, you just got to decide, are you happy with it? What's your gut tell you? Maybe you get that external input to make sure that you're not missing anything, which is kind of where I'm at with the Smokies. It's such a large group of photos. Right. It's hard to take that step back sometimes and really kind of make that impartial determination because I've been in it for I almost said the F word. I haven't said the F word on the podcast for a freaking year.
Gotta censor this one now. Not safe for children.
I stopped myself. So anyways, I'm kind of talking in circles, but you got to trust yourself at some point. That's what all of this comes down to is you got to trust yourself. If you're not feeling comfortable in trusting yourself, then seek some external input and get that input or get that feedback and again, learn to accept it or make the argument against it. And the argument against it piece would be, it's been several episodes since we talked about this, but Heather went to art school and one of the big pieces of the coursework that she was in was defending one's work. And that's kind of how I look at it with the feedback I get from others is, okay, I don't agree with it, but why? What's my defense of it? And if I can't come up with a good defense or a good counter argument to their feedback, then maybe I need to be open to that feedback because I clearly don't have a strong enough position or I'm not able to articulate what that position is. So maybe it's a weaker position in terms of pushing back against it.
Yep. I think that's good. So we've been talking a lot about editing and sharing our images on our website galleries and our social medias and things like that. But, printing, that's really the true final step. I mean, we've talked a little bit about selling your print, and I think you mentioned before, would you be happy with that on someone's wall? How does that impact your editing process and your editing thought? Does it contribute to the images done, or where's that printing factor? Because I feel like that has a little more do or die to it than sharing it on a website somewhere.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, and it's certainly a maybe trope isn't the right word, but it's a conversation piece in the photography community that, for whatever reason, printing your work is the best way to find flaws.
100%.
You can look at the same image on your monitor, for hours and days on end, and then you print it out as an 8x10 or 11x14 or something, and as soon as it comes off the printer, you go, "Ooh, how did I miss that thing?" And which has happened to me plenty of times. And I'll use the example of I've got a photo on my portfolio, Summer Reverie. I edited it. I really liked the edit, thought it looked great, and then I printed that edit with soft proofing and everything, obviously, and didn't look so great. It was really, it came out much warmer, even when accounting for the warmth of the paper. So I went in and I did a really significant adjustment on the soft proofing copy to really kind of cool things down, shift the leaves away from the yellow that I felt like they were looking to more towards the kind of bright, vibrant greens. Love the print now. Mm-hmm. I need to go back and tweak the edit for what's published because it's not really representative of the print anymore. But that is an example. Another one, I did when I was still offering canvas prints on the website, I had an order come in for one of my Grand Teton photos. I was black and white. And because it was on canvas, I followed New Mexico Fine Arts recommendations for, the monitor setup and that for that. But I still did my own test print, even though it wasn't going to be the same material. I still like to do my own test prints for that, just to see if, again, something jarring like what we talked about just now jumps out at you when it actually is on paper.
Right.
And that case, I found that the size you print also matters, because I usually do those little test prints like 8x10, 8.5x11. If I've got some sheets of that I'm trying to work through or whatever that I don't use anymore. And I printed it out and I was like, it's a shot where the foreground is all silhouetted essentially against the mountainside. So a lot of blacks and everything. And I printed 8x10 and I was like, wow, it's just like a black blob down there. And I'm looking on my screen, I was like, but there's pockets of light. And it was just at that size of the print, just those little pockets of light were too small. So they were just coming through as just, there was no pocket of light. I printed 11x14, and just going from 8x10 to 11x14, suddenly the image looked totally different. And it looked, it matched the monitor in terms of those pockets and breaking up the just black blob that was there in the smaller print. But it gave me the confidence to send the order out to NMFA, because I was like, my God, like this doesn't look right at all.
Right.
So to me, print is a huge piece of it, because you just see whether it's things on the edges or a bright spot that isn't in balance tonally with the rest of the frame for whatever reason on print, that'll jump out at you usually more than it ever would on the monitor screen. But also recognizing that print can be a tool for, I should say proofing prints can be a tool for getting to that final edit in terms of, okay, I did this proofing print, it doesn't look quite right. Why is that? And that's what I ran into with that black and white photo from the Grand Tetons is it truly the proofing processing I've done? In that case, no. Oh, wow. It looks right when I print it bigger. Well, this is going to be a 40x60 canvas, so I'm good to go. That kind of thing. So it's certainly, it's huge to me. And again, I know not everybody has the ability to print on their own. You can send stuff out for print and at least look at it that way. With the Smoky Mountains files, the next thing I've got to do is like order everything in terms of the flow of the images, in terms of the gallery, and I'll probably do an ebook. I can do that in Lightroom. I've historically done that in Lightroom. I just throw everything in survey view and then drag images around. But with 70 or 60 plus photos, they're all pretty small thumbnails. So I thought, well, I've got a 24-inch printer sitting behind me. Should I just print out a contact sheet, essentially, cut them all out individually, and then I can lay them out somewhere. I don't know where, because cats will jump on it, but lay them out somewhere to work on that visual flow in some regard too, which again, you can do with print. It is different than just dragging thumbnails around on a monitor screen in Lightroom or whatever. So there's that kind of that contact sheet / flow of order, whether you're doing an ebook or just a gallery, or even just trying to determine what order do I want to publish these in social media, like printing them individually, even just as like 4x6 or 5x7 little note card size, essentially. It's enough to help you group similar images, but then throw in those contrasting images, as we talked about with Sarah Marino and her ebook episode. Whereas I think that's a little harder to do when you're staring at it on the monitor screen. So to me, printing, I've said it plenty of times before in our print episodes too, printing is is bigly important.
Bigly important. Yep. Sure.
So let's wrap this up. We're well over an hour here. So kind of a 2-for-1 to kind of wrap this up. A, do you think a photographer that's maybe been doing it for decades, do photographers ever truly get to a quote unquote done stage in terms of evolving their style and processes? And then to that end as well, how do you reflect on your body of work as a whole as opposed to just an individual image? Because I think that ties into the evolution piece as well. So yeah, I'll let you take first stab at that, because it's a little bit of a, not a doozy, but maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a dollop.
Yeah. I certainly don't feel like I'm at the stage of evolving my style and my approach. I feel like I've got plenty more to learn, and a lot of that learning is in those details now, right? Like the little tip you mentioned earlier, bring the warmth down to get some color separation. Like that's not something you think of your first year of photography generally, right? You're not to that point. And I feel like because this is more of a craft than anything, an art form, there's always more detail to learn, which you're going to find out you like, and maybe is that pop that suddenly makes your images feel a little more lively that they didn't a year or two ago, even though it's super subtle. It's because our brains have edited more, consumed more photography. We see these things, and it's those teeny tiny finer points that start to add up to make a big change. So because of that, I certainly don't feel like I'm truly done, and I don't really see myself reaching a point where I'm like, yep, I'm good. I know exactly what I'm doing. Right. I'm not looking, I'm not experimenting with anything else, and I'm not going to change how I do things. So I don't see myself reaching that point, and I'm certainly not there now. And some of that is, driven by a reflection on the body of work. I like to think my body of work is improved. I don't update my website galleries as often as I should, but my last go through was I got rid of some stuff that just really wasn't that great anymore, and I think I replaced it with stuff that's better. It's been a little bit since I've done that. I feel like I could probably do another run through my galleries and either add more work that is more engaging, or potentially drop some stuff that doesn't quite hold its same. And I that's something else I don't see necessarily fading. I could see it being, you're not necessarily lopping 50 images off of your site to replace, but you're starting to find you've still got 2 or 3 that as time goes on, it's like, yeah, I probably should drop that off. Or, I visit Death Valley a lot. Maybe I've got a dune image that I have one up there, but now I've gotten even better at seeing the sand dunes, to editing the sand dunes. Right. And now this new image is stronger, so it sort of cascades its way out. But again, similar to the editing style, I don't see you reaching a point of done for your body of work. Changes might be smaller, more incremental than big swings, but those finer points, as you start to execute them and they start to grow, you start to see those bigger gaps, I think, in your body of work, as you do that. So how about you? Are you done? Got your style dialed in?
Oh yeah, I'm done, man. I'm kicking back. No, I mean, absolutely, I agree. I don't think a quote unquote master of photography is ever going to be done. Yep. And from my viewpoint, I don't ever want to be done, because part of what I like is the fact that I've always got the opportunity to learn something new, whether it's from a post-processing standpoint or just a creative vision standpoint, or I want to shift the way I'm approaching things, and kind of that shift from I shot a lot of wide angle, then I went smaller scene. Now I'm kind of pulling back out and doing a little bit of both. I used to be much heavier on contrast, then I went very light on contrast. Now, again, I'm kind of finding that balance and that evolution of my skill set and my vision to pull from all those different pieces of experience and bundle it all up and together into where I'm at today. If I continue to do that, then I will never be at the same point from day to day or year to year or whatever, if I continue to pull from all those past experiences, learnings and input and reading and all that stuff. So I don't think I'd ever want to be done. And part of the reason I say that is, I love the learning aspect of it, but also I feel like we've talked about this before, but I feel like that's where people burn out, is when it just becomes wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. They get bored, or they feel stagnated. They lose the passion for it because, I show up, I'm doing the same thing, like foreground, midground, background, whatever, big barrel cactus in the front. Like if that's all I ever shot, I think that would get pretty boring pretty quickly. Whereas if I'm pushing myself and trying new things and trying new approaches, that's keeping me from feeling stagnated in terms of my growth and stagnated in terms of my interest in what I'm doing for not just my career, but for my passion that I love so much. I don't want to lose that love for it. And I think I probably would if I ever just kind of sat back and said, I don't want to try anything different.
Right.
And I think, again, that to your point, it kind of then ties into the whole looking at your body of work as a whole. Because for me, it's an opportunity to evaluate past work. And is it as good as my current work? Do I want to swap out an older image for a newer one? But also, like, I've got this newer one from the same place. It's not as good as that older one. So what does that tell me?
Right.
Maybe I have stagnated a little bit. Why is that? What do I need to do differently? How do I push myself to see differently from a creative vision standpoint in that? But also, I should be able to see that progression of style. Like I said, I go back and look at my oldest photos. They are much heavier on contrast. They tend to be darker. I was more in that like darker, moody type of photography in many regards. So you should be able to note those differences, and it doesn't mean that older stuff isn't good. It's just different. And that is part of the evolution of someone as an artist. I'm not real up on, like, I know the historical painters are the big names, but I'm not like deep rooted in their work or anything. Heather could probably talk to it better than me, but I would imagine a Rembrandt from early on in his painting career to a Rembrandt in his later years is different, and it looks different. It's got different approach and colors or whatever. So I think the best artists are the ones that continue to evolve, just like musicians, right? Like, I love Red Hot Chili Peppers. Think Blood Sugar Sex Magic is one of the best rock albums ever put out. And their work today is wildly different.
Right.
But if everything just sounded like Blood Sugar Sex Magic,
right,
probably get a little bored of it. So
Yep.
I think, again, your best artist, and I know Chili Peppers are a point of debate for many people. And yes, they love California. Shut up. You have to evolve for so many different reasons, for fulfillment, for maintaining that curiosity. I think that's something as you get older, maybe just in life, maybe you lose a little bit of it. It helps you keep that youthful curiosity in the world and how things around you are laid out, or learning about the geography. Like, there's so many ways to do it, and all of that will benefit you from an artistic standpoint, a creative vision standpoint, so on and so forth.
For sure.
So, boom, done.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts on this one?
No, I think it was a good episode. I think we covered a lot of things and hit a lot of key points, and I think hopefully people find it helpful and talking through it, and hopefully it helps them be more confident where they are.
Yep. And again, join the conversation. As I get an eyelash on my eye, join the conversation with us over on Patreon. You don't have to be a paid member to chat with us. We have episode discussion topics for every episode. If you do want to support the podcast, that'd be fantastic. It'll help cover our cost, which we're still not quite there. So definitely would appreciate the support from that regard. If you love the show, show your support, make a monthly pledge. Otherwise, join us for the free conversation piece as well. What else? We've got the new donation option out. If you don't want to make a monthly pledge, you can go to shutterNonsense.com and make a one-time donation. I feel like there's other stuff we should talk about, but we'll just wrap it up there because my head is pounding. And I want to go take some more Tylenol. So
yeah.
Any last words, Jeffrey? What do we need to do? What do we need to do?
We got to shut her down.
Let's shut her down. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And until next time, take care.